What is up, DS3 TV? We are back for another video. This one is the Ottoman Wars, and this is another part to it. I don't know what part we're at anymore. It's been a lot of parts, so I don't know what part we're at anymore. But yeah. So this is the battles of Goranji and Castelnuovo, Nuovo, 1537. So yeah, let's get into it. And also subscribe to the channel. I want to get 1,000 subscribers by my birthday, September 13th. Also, it's been pretty kind of a hectic week, so that's why I haven't been kind of posting a lot. It's been kind of a hectic week with school and classes and stuff like that. But yeah, so let's get into it. And yeah. Also, you can recommend me videos down in the comment section down below, and I will watch them. Just recommend it in the comment section down below, and I will probably watch them. So yeah, let's get back into it.
The next few episodes of our series on the Ottoman Wars will cover both land and naval battles, so we hope you are ready to dive into one of the most complicated periods in these conflicts. On the sea, the Ottomans were trying to consolidate their power after the victory at Preveza, while on land, the conflicts around modern-day Hungary and Croatia continued towards their culmination at a number of sieges. Thanks to Audible for sponsoring this video. We've been huge fans of Audible for a long time now and frequently listen to their audio, Kings and Generals to 500. After the failed siege of Vienna in 1529, the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I returned to his capital. Although his vassal John Sepoya managed to restore his positions in Hungary, the situation in the region was still very much in flux, and the Habsburg heir Ferdinand was not planning to stay idle. According to the Ottoman sources, his messengers visited Constantinople in 1530 and demanded Suleiman stop supporting John, which was refused. In response, Ferdinand moved his troops and attacked John, starting the so-called Little War. The Habsburg advances were largely successful, but weren't able to take the capital, Buda. New ambassadors were sent to Constantinople by the end of 1530, but despite the fact that their tone was more conciliatory this time, no agreement was reached, and Suleiman started gearing up for a new campaign against the Habsburgs. According to the sources, the Sultan mobilized more than 100,000 troops for this offensive. The army left in April, and by July, many Habsburg fortresses in Hungary fell to the Ottomans, while the lands in modern-day Slovakia, Slovenia, Austria and Croatia were raided. Suleiman's forces outnumbered Ferdinand's, so the latter retreated towards Vienna, leaving an 800-strong garrison under the Croatian noble, Nikola Jurisic, to defend the crucial fortress of Kurseg. At the same time, in order to avoid an open conflict against the Protestant leaders of the empire while he was still fighting the Ottomans, Ferdinand was forced to sign the Nuremberg Religious Peace. The sources are conflicted regarding the siege of Kurseg, but it seems that the Ottomans thought that it had a much bigger garrison, since it defended a road to Vienna. So first the vizier Ibrahim Pasha and then the Sultan surrounded it and used all the artillery and siege tactics they had in their repertoire. The garrison repelled 20 assaults and refused to surrender. The rains started early that year, and the imperial army was forming up in Regensburg to move into Hungary, so Suleiman decided to retreat to Constantinople. Emperor Charles V and his son Ferdinand knew that a new Ottoman invasion may happen in the future, so they sent a number of envoys to the Safavid Shah, Tahmasp I, between 1529 and 1533, renewing the treaties previously signed with.
That definitely showed that you don't go against Suleiman, though. I feel like that's what that show of force definitely did show. That you don't ever try to go against him and take away his land, at all.
With Tahmasp's father, Ismail.
And even if it wasn't technically his land, as you can see, it was basically all of it was really his land. They all had to pay tribute to him, so it was technically his land.
In 1533, the Safavid Shah started inciting rebellions against Suleiman in the frontier regions, and that was enough to make the Ottoman Sultan sign the Treaty of Constantinople of 1533 with the Habsburgs. John Sepoya was recognized as the King of Hungary, while Ferdinand was to keep the western portion of the country and pay 30,000 guldens in yearly tribute to the Ottomans. According to a peculiar clause in the treaty, Emperor Charles promised to only use the title of Emperor in regards to the Ottoman Sultan. With that, Suleiman started his campaign against Tahmasp. He sent letters to the Shaybanids, and they attacked the Safavids in Central Asia, which pulled Tahmasp's forces away from the front. This allowed the Ottomans to take the enemy capital Tabriz and then Baghdad with ease, but further invasion was stopped by the Safavid Shah somewhere in the Zagros Mountains. The Ottomans lost tens of thousands during the battle there, and due to the weather conditions, Suleiman decided to abandon the campaign. Still, the Ottomans gained territories in the Western Caucasus, Iran and Iraq. Back in Europe, John and Ferdinand were constantly raiding and counterattacking. The apparent passivity of the Sultan emboldened Ferdinand, and in 1537 the Habsburgs attacked the Ottomans both on land and at sea. A 24,000-strong army under Johann Katsina moved to attack the Ottoman territories directly and take Osijek in modern-day Croatia, which was crucial for the Ottoman supply lines in the region. Although the Ottoman garrison was just 3,000 strong, the fortress itself was well constructed, and the lack of artillery in the Imperial Army, coupled with disease and once again the bad weather conditions, slowed the investment process down. A few assault attempts failed, and Katsina decided to wait the defenders out. This allowed the Ottoman governor of Belgrade, Mehmet Pasha, to gather a cavalry force of 8,000 and march to assist Osijek. The details are unclear, but according to the sources, the Ottomans attacked the Habsburg army from multiple directions, and the latter suffered heavy casualties before they managed to form up and drive Mehmet Pasha's cavalry back. The fact that only horsemen attacked made Katsina think that the rest of the Ottoman army would soon arrive, so he decided to abandon the siege and retreat. During this retreat, which continued for a few days, the Ottoman light cavalry constantly harassed the imperial troops until both armies reached the area called Goyani. The Habsburg army finally saw that the Ottoman army was much smaller than expected, and their commanders decided to counterattack. It seems that it was what the Ottomans were waiting for, as they feigned a retreat, luring the fastest Habsburg units into a trap where they were attacked by the garrison of Osijek from both sides and by the cavalry itself from the front. With a portion of the imperial army destroyed, Katsina fled the field, and the rest of the Habsburg units were shattered. The Ottomans lost just a few hundred troops in this battle, while the Habsburg losses were more than 20,000.
That was a big underdog win, because I did not expect the Ottomans to win that one.
At the same time, the United Christian Fleet had seized the coastal town of Castelnuovo off the coast of modern-day Montenegro. Castelnuovo was not just a coastal outpost. At the height of their power, the Holy League had intended to use it as a staging point to launch a unilateral invasion deep into the Ottoman heartland. However, after the Battle of Preveza, the momentum had shifted. The Holy League dissolved, the Venetians had capitulated to the Ottomans for peace, and without Venetian ships, the former invasion plan was in shambles. In the winter following the victory at Preveza, Sultan Suleiman commanded Barbarossa to replenish his fleet and prepare it for an offensive campaign in the spring of 1539. Their plan was simple in execution. They would launch a two-pronged attack upon Castelnuovo. The red-bearded admiral would blockade the coastal fortress from the sea, while the governor of Ottoman Bosnia, a man named Ulaman, would lead an assault from land, sandwiching their target from two sides. Barbarossa embarked around 10,000 infantry regulars on his fleet of 200 ships, on top of a force of 4,000 elite janissaries. Meanwhile, the inland army numbered 30,000 strong. With a combined army pushing 50,000 men, the sheer might of the Ottomans would surely win the day. Meanwhile, the Habsburg garrison inside Castelnuovo was paltry compared to the colossal legions descending upon them. The defending force was a single tercio, a unit of Spanish pikemen and arquebusiers led by one Francisco de Sarmiento. The tercio itself was only 3,500 strong, supplemented by a few light cavalry and Greek soldiers. Nevertheless, they were resolved to put up a fight. In the months leading to the Ottoman arrival, Sarmiento fortified his position, repairing walls and bastions and building new fortifications. He sent letters for aid across Habsburg domains, to no avail. Andrea Doria, who had abandoned the fight at Previsa a year earlier, refused to risk his now smaller fleet to fight Barbarossa, and by the time the call for aid reached Spain, it was too late. On the 12th of June, a vanguard of 30 Ottoman galleys arrived at the Gulf of Kotor on Barbarossa's behest, blockading it. They disembarked an advance party of 1,000 soldiers into the hinterlands outside Castelnuovo to forage for food, water, and to capture locals for intel. The Spanish were soon made aware of their foe's landing, and Sarmiento dispatched a force of 3 companies, 900 infantrymen in total, to meet them. A ferocious sortie erupted, with the experienced Spanish pikemen and arquebusiers managing to drive the Ottomans back onto their ships. Yet, in the afternoon, the Turks once more tried to sortie out onto land, only this time to be beaten back by a 600-strong force led by Sarmiento himself, with heavy casualties inflicted. Barbarossa arrived on the 18th of June with the bulk of the Ottoman fleet, and immediately ordered his soldiers to disembark and establish a beachhead. The Ottoman governor arrived with his army a few days later from inland, and together they began digging a network of trenches around the fortress and setting up ramparts for the 44 heavy bombards that had been disembarked from the ships. This was a slow and laborious process which Sarmiento intended to fully exploit. Spanish soldiers sallied out of their fortress and launched several surprise raids to disrupt the Ottoman construction process. These sorties cost the Ottomans dearly and provoked the Janissaries to retaliate by storming the walls of the fortress. However, they were caught unawares by a force of 800 Spaniards who devastated the Janissary ranks. Barbarossa was furious, as the Janissary Corps was his most elite unit and the hardest to replace. He ordered his troops to remain cloistered defensively around the trenches until they were ready to launch a full assault. The defenders simply didn't have enough men to drive the massive Ottoman army from their beachhead entirely, so they retreated behind their walls and prepared for the siege to come. Ottoman fortifications were prepared by the 23rd of July, and Barbarossa was ready to bring the full might of his army to bear upon Castelnuovo. He sent an olive branch to Sarmiento, offering him peace and safe passage to Italy if he surrendered, even bribing each of his soldiers with 20 golden ducats if only they laid down their arms. The defenders refused, preferring to die in the service of Charles V. And so the bombardment of Castelnuovo began. For the entire day, the great bombards shelled the fortress proper, while the regular infantry stormed the walls. Losses were heavy for the Turks, for the Ottoman artillery caused much friendly fire, while the Spanish gunners inflicted devastation upon their foe. As darkness fell each night, the Ottoman forces would withdraw, giving the defenders time to shore up their battered defences, while a bishop by the name of Jeremias confessed the dying and kept morale high. Soon after the first wave of assaults, a Spanish contingent of 600 infantrymen sallied out of the city at dawn, launching a blitz upon an unaware Ottoman camp. Even the remaining Janissaries were routed by the sudden raid, tearing up their own camp in an attempt to flee. the Spaniards came dangerously close to Barbarossa himself, who was forced to board a galley and head offshore to safety. Nevertheless, still lacking in manpower, the raiders had to eventually retreat back to Castelnuovo before the bulk of the Ottoman army rallied and overwhelmed them. Up until this point, the bulk of the defending Spaniards had held up in the upper citadel overlooking the town proper, but by August 4th, the Ottoman bombards had all but shelled it into rubble. That same day, the Turks launched a full-scale offensive on this vulnerable position. The defenders fought valiantly and managed to inflict yet more heavy casualties, but were eventually forced to retreat into the relatively more intact walls of the town, leaving Barbarossa to occupy the citadel. Fierce fighting continued on the following day. The defenders, battered and weary, still made the Ottomans pay dearly for every inch of ground taken. They defended the town valiantly, and the Turks were only able to capture a small section of the walls centered around a watchtower. Sarmiento dispatched a team of sappers to have this watchtower destroyed, but the fuse was lit prematurely, blowing up the sappers before they reached the tower. By August 6th, Ottoman artillery had rendered the town's walls moribund, and Sarmiento was forced to retreat deeper to a fortified castle in the town's southern district. Most of Castelnuovo's civilians were held up there, and the entrance had been barred. There remained no time to retreat within the fortification, for the Ottomans were encroaching quickly upon them. One of the townsfolk offered Sarmiento a rope to climb, but he refused, resolving to die alongside the rest of his men in a final last stand. Only 600 Spanish soldiers remained, and as the Turkish army fell upon them, they fought side by side until all were slain or captured. At the end of the day, only 200 defenders remained. Half were executed, while the rest were sold into slavery in Constantinople. On the Ottoman side, more than 10,000 men lay dead, though some sources claim that their casualties were as high as 37,000. The victory had come at a great cost, and the Spaniards had put up a historically valiant fight in the name of their Habsburg overlord. Nevertheless, it was over. Castelnuovo was in Ottoman hands, and Habsburg influence in the eastern Mediterranean had been snuffed out, at least for now. We are planning to cover every major battle and campaign in Ottoman history, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button.
Well, that was a really good video. And yeah. Really good. I always find it so interesting that we know so much, like we have so many records about like the history of like battles and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. And like you can put together like exactly what happened in certain battles. That's actually like really cool to me. But yeah, so talk to you guys in the next video. Also subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Want to get 1,000 subscribers by my birthday. Yeah, thank you guys for 531 subscribers, and talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.